Hi, I'm Jason and welcome to part 6 of this Linux command line tutorial for beginners. In this section we'll be looking at creating files, and if we've got time we'll look at a basic text editor. So let's dive right in. So here we can see I'm already in my terminal, but before we start making files that go into the folders that we created in part 5, I just wanted to share some other interesting Linux behavior that you may find useful. So let's do a quick ls to see what's listed in our home directory. And you may have spotted this folder in my previous session and wondered what the hell is that? And I've put it there to demonstrate something. So first of all, you'll notice it is indeed a folder, as it's represented by the blue color like all the other folders. But let's try and change directory into it in the way that you would think it should happen. So if I type cd for change directory and then supercalifragistic xb ali docious. Have I spelt that right? I hope so. Let's press enter and we get this message. Too many arguments. What does that mean? Well, we start off okay with the cd command, and then the first line or the first part of the name of the folder, which is super, but then we put a space. And the operating system starts to look for the folder called super, and it can't find one. And then it goes on to read all the other spaces in between the words and cannot decipher what we want. In other words, Linux does not like spaces. You may have noticed this when I've been creating directories in previous sessions, like my folder and my other folder, etc. All as one word. Don't get me wrong though, we can still have folders that are created with spaces in between them, but we'll need to call upon them in a different way. So let's bring up that cd command again by pressing the up arrow. But this time I'm going to put a single quote at the end, and I'm also going to put a single quote at the beginning of the folder name. Now if I press enter, it gets me straight into that folder. Let's cd back one again to come out, and I'll just show you that again. But this time I'm going to put double quotes. We can also put double quotes in and press enter, and we're back in that folder again. That's one way we can call upon folders that have spaces in between the names, either with single quotes or with double quotes. Let me show you another way. So I'm going to cd back one again, so I'm out of that supercalifragilisticexpialidocious folder. And this time I'm going to start typing cd and then super and then press the tab key, and there you can see it fills in the rest of the directory's name, but automatically puts a backslash in between each word to compensate for the spaces. And if I press enter, that indeed does also take us into that directory. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. So let's get on with the show. Files, how do we create them? Well, first off, we could use a command called touch. So I'm going to come back out of this directory. Let's ls, what have we got in there? We made a folder last time called my folder. So let's cd into my folder. And to create a file under here, we can use a command called touch. So literally just write the word touch, put a space, and then we can name the file what we want. So let's call it file1.txt and press enter. And now if I do an ls, we can see that we have a file1.txt under my folder. And let me just show you this in the graphical view as well. So if we go into my folder, we have a file1.txt file there. An even simpler way to create a file would be using the redirection operator. In other words, using the greater than symbol and then a space, so like this, and then the file name that we want. So let's call it file1.txt and press enter. Now if I do an ls, we can see that we've got the extra file1.txt file that we've created. Yeah, well, that's okay, Jace. This is all well and good, but what use are these empty files? Well, we can create a file with the cat command, which is normally used to read files, but will also enable us to populate a file with information. So like this, cat space greater than symbol, space, and then the file name. So file1.txt. And then when I press enter, notice it's not returned me to the normal prompt. It's actually waiting for me to input data. So let's type some data. Let's type some data like hello world. And when I've finished typing the data, I can hold the control key and press D. And that takes me back to my prompt. So let's do an ls first of all. So we can see the capital F file1.txt has been created. And if I show you again in the graphical view, there it is there. And if I double click to open it, we can see that we have the data inside the file that we created. And you may have noticed that I have just created all three of these files with the same name, with slight variances. Now, if I'd have done this in, let's say, Microsoft Windows, we would probably have got something like the following error message. But as you can see, Linux is different in the way that it really does go into more detail when it's dealing with file names. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Leave a comment after the video and let me know your thoughts. To me, I must admit though, I think it's kind of cool. Okay, so we have a file with stuff inside it, and instead of viewing the contents in the graphical user interface, how can we see the contents of a file inside the command line? Well, let's close our graphical interface. And remember when I said that the cat command is normally used for reading files? Well, let's try it out. So if I type cat space file1.txt and press enter, it will show me the text inside that file. So I suppose we could squeeze a few more minutes out of this session by trying something else. What if we wanted to add more text to this file? Well, this is where we can use a text editor. One of the easiest text editors to get to grips with on Linux is called Nano. And we call upon Nano by typing Nano, and then a space, and then the file that we want to edit. As we're already in the My Folders directory, we don't need to navigate anywhere. We can literally just type file1.txt and press enter. So using the up and down arrows and left and right, I can navigate around this text editor. I can add another line, hello again, press enter, basically do what I want in what I want to edit the document with. And when I'm finished, you've probably noticed that down the bottom there are a selection of options that we can choose depending on what we want to do in this text editor. So I finished with the text editor, so I just want to exit. Now the chevron next to the X for exit is advising me to hold the control and press the X key. So if I press control and X to exit, it will also prompt me to save, yes or no. I'm going to say yes and then press enter and I'm back out. And if we scroll through our cat command again and just enter that, we can see the extra text that we've added onto our file using the Nano text editor. So I think that's all I'm going to cover for this particular session. In the next session, we'll be looking at appending information to files, moving files, renaming, copying files, and deleting files. So I hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.